Hey guys, I'm Grace.
And I'm Nicholas.
And today we're going to be talking about how education produces freedom for African Americans in the contemporary or today's society.
Also, on top of that, we're going to be discussing our experiences that we could tie into the video Tell Them We Are Rising by Stanley Nelson and Marco Williams. So my first main point about how does education for African Americans and how does it produce freedom. So basically, Grace, so what I found in chapter 6 of the book by Donaldson called A Voyage Through African American Experience is that in the book that our people in chapter 6, it says that as much as African Americans wanted education, white colonists or white people, white slave owners at the time, that's how bad they wanted to keep it away.
Right.
So freedom basically look at education like a necessity. Like you can't be, like back then as a slave, you wasn't considered free.
I feel like
you were considered free, but education was important to be considered free.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that education was withheld, like that obviously isn't freedom.
So education became a focal point to many people back then, like Thurgood Marshall, W.D. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, and it basically helped show that with education, with education, we can understand more about being free. We can understand more that's going on in the world. We can understand that education becomes more critical every day.
That's so true. Well, for one of my sources, I used I used a quote from the documentary that we watched, and the quote was by Booker T. Washington, and he said that I had a feeling that getting into the schoolhouse would be the same as getting into paradise. And for me, I feel like that really answers the question that education does produce freedom, because he's saying that just by even walking into the school, he would feel like he was in paradise. And so I feel like by him saying that, he's saying like, if he could be educated, like that would be the key to his freedom. You know, with education, I feel like that is one of the only ways that they could be free back then. And so I feel like today it kind of still holds the same truth.
I would say it wasn't the only way, but it was the focal point, the main point of like how you could be free.
Right.
And on top of that, like even me as a black man in America, like my mom, growing up, my mom always told me that an educated black man is a dangerous thing. An educated African American is a dangerous thing. So in society, like us getting an education is like, it's seen as a bad thing because we're seen as dangerous now. We're seen like, because you can take anything from us, but one thing you cannot take from us is an education. So even in the video, it's just like you see that no matter what, in the video, they'll Tell Them Why We Are Rising by Stanley Nelson and Marco Williams, you saw no matter what, that African Americans did whatever they can to get an education. They stood in the president's office in Southern, even though the president told the police to go get them out, and the president wasn't even there because they weren't getting educated. They were mad because LSU was getting more funds than Southern. And in my experience, when I went to Jackson State, they weren't really funding Jackson State like that. They were funding other things in the state, Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
Right.
They were funding what the state needed, but it was just like Jackson State was going broke because we didn't have a lot of funds from the state.
Yeah. And I feel like that's like a main reason why education was so important. Like you said, like holding that back, it was like they were saying like it's dangerous, you know, because if you have education, like then you're educated enough to know what's wrong and like to know what you're able to do. And so going off of that, in chapter 6 from the book, it talks about how W.E.B. Du Bois was the first black man to get a PhD from Harvard. And so I feel like that really shows how you can do anything with an education, because he was the first black man to get that, and he got a PhD, and like look how far he's come from that, you know? And so I feel like education really it is the main focal point, like you said, of being truly free. And so I feel like that's how even today, like, it still does produce freedom. Like, being educated still does make people free to do whatever they want.
And even in the video, it shows, like, even when we could get an education, even we still weren't treated right. It still felt like we weren't free. It still felt like we were separate from America as being African Americans. Look at Howard Law School. They went through so much to try to become a credible law school. And then you get lawyers like Thurgood Marshall that comes out of Howard Law School in the video, and it's just things started to unfold, and black people started to realize the more education I have, the more free I have, the more can nobody tell me what to do because I know more now.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope you learned a little bit about our experience.
Thank you.